All right. Good morning, everybody. It is quarter after the hour, and I'm going to convene our January Greenwood County Democratic Party breakfast meeting. I'm so glad you made it out here on this warm, beautiful Saturday morning. If you enjoyed the weather outside, this is a typical New York summer morning. So I absolutely love it. Could I have everybody please rise as we begin our proceedings with the Pledge of Allegiance? Could I have Frank Kazwara come to the stage, please, and lead us? He is a veteran, and he will introduce himself.
You know, when you were in the Army and they put you in a tent and they gassed you with tear gas, and they made you give your name, rank, and serial number. I still remember my serial number, US 529874880. My phone number, that's a different story. Lady, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. All right, if we may have a moment of silence, please, where we center ourselves, collect our thoughts, remember those who have passed since the last time we met, as well as take an opportunity to be grateful for the blessings we have received. We've actually had quite a few notable Democrats pass in this past month, and I want to recognize them. We have lost, for those who have been in South Carolina a long time, you may remember former Congressman John Spratt. John Spratt was a wonderful negotiator, a great servant of the people, fiscally responsible. He helped lead the balancing of the budget at the federal level. But then not only his vote, but the fact that he introduced the Affordable Care Act into Congress on behalf of President Obama, that cost him his political spot. And he said he knew that it was going to cost him, but he felt it was worth it anyway. And here we are many years later, and Obamacare is still the law of the land thanks to Congressman John Spratt. We've also lost civil rights activist Thomas Gaither. For those that know South Carolina history, you might have heard of the South Carolina Friendship Nine. Who's heard of them? The Friendship Nine, they were famous because during the civil rights era of the 60s, they broke a segregated lunch counter in York, South Carolina. No, I'm sorry, it was Rock Hill in York County. So it was in Rock Hill. Then they got arrested, and they helped start the jail without bond movement. They decided they would not put the pressure of bail bonds on the civil rights activists, and instead they would do their time. And that became the mode of operation for these peaceful protests. These civil rights activists chose to go to jail rather than spend funds to get bailed out. And they were called the Friendship Nine, not necessarily because they were friends, but because 8 of the 9 went to Friendship Junior College, if you've heard of that. So it's an interesting trivia fact. And then finally, we also lost former South Carolina State Senator Kay Patterson. He was an amazing servant back in a golden era, I think, of South Carolina legislation. He started out as a janitor in the State House. Imagine that. He went on to become a senator, representing in that State House, but he worked as a janitor back when the South Carolina State House was still segregated. So that's where he got his start, from humble beginnings, went on to become an educator, and then his legacy is that he led the charge to remove the Confederate flag from the State House grounds, from the Capitol building. And he filed suit. He was one of those who filed suit to get that taken down, so we thank him for that. But then, of course, we can't forget former President and humanitarian President Jimmy Carter, and I'll have a little tribute to him afterwards. But at the moment, let's have a moment of silence and remember these 4 heroes of the Democratic Party. thank you. I want to welcome everybody. First of all, I would like a show of hands for whom among you is this the first time you've come to a Greenwood County Democratic Party breakfast meeting? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 new ones. Welcome. Glad you can make it. I hope you're sitting at a table with the nice people and that you stayed away from the not so nice people. But we want you to know this is a very friendly and welcoming environment, and we hope to have you back at some point in the future. Just a tour. You notice the breakfast is over on your left. Restrooms, men and women's, over on your right. Feel free to get up and use at any time. I also want to welcome all of our veterans. Show of hands. Any of those who are active or served. Look at all these amazing servants of our country. God bless you. Thank you. And appreciate your service. I also want to recognize all those who are in the medical professions as nurses or doctors or dentists or first responders. We have Nurse Kat back there. We have a nurse over here. Thank you. We appreciate what you do for our community. And then I also want to add a big thank you to those who work in the education field. Any teachers or any school administrators out there? Anybody working in the schools to help them run? Bless you. Thank you. I was going to be a teacher once upon a time. I taught high school for a hot minute and then ended up in a completely different career, but education was my first love. So I'm glad to have you. Any elected officials who are serving in public office present with us today? We have one. Would you mind introducing yourself to the crowd? Faye Puckett from McCormick County. Thank you very much, Faye. Appreciate you joining us today. All right, a couple of quick business items before we get to the program. Let's talk about the elephant in the room, the donkey in the room. Sorry, I forgot where I was. I want to talk about the stage. So we are back at Morris Chapel Baptist Church. We've been away from here for 3 months because of Hurricane Helene collapsed the roof right above me. And it poured rain all over the stage, ruining the carpets, ruining everything. The gentleman told me there was 4 inches of water on the floor that you're all sitting in right now. And they've done an amazing job to get this facility back up in shape in 3 months. And they still have a project to get the stage going. But I kind of like this stripped down look. You know, it makes me feel like I'm in a performance of West Side Story maybe. Or maybe we're doing it from jail, or the stripped down, we're starting over bare bones. I kind of like this. But we are very grateful to Bishop McCrae and all of those who worked with Morris Chapel Baptist to allow us to come back and use this facility. As you can see, with the over 60 people we have in attendance, we need the space because we are the Greenwood County Democratic Party. So thank you for being back. I'm so happy. A couple other quick items. Last month at Tabernacle Baptist, where we had our December meeting, somebody left this coffee mug behind. It's a beautiful mug. Does this look familiar to anybody? This was left behind on one of the tables. If nobody claims it, it becomes property of the Greenwood County Democratic Party. All right. So say all. All right, on with business. Our agenda today is action-packed. I'm going to start with some opening comments and some party updates, and then I'm going to give you a whirlwind tour of pre-filed legislation. Some interesting stuff there. Then we have a county party chairs forum. We are so glad to have Cherry Brown from McCormick. Wave your hand, Cherry. Over here, we've got Booker Ingram from Lawrence County and Reba Cruz from Pickens County. She got up at 2 o'clock in the morning, hopped in the car, and made it here just in time. She beat most of y'all here. What is your excuse for showing up so late? She made it from Pickens County before 8. So we're glad to have you. And then we're going to have a little forum up here to wrap up this month's meeting, and then an open forum if time allows. But first, very important, birthday acknowledgments. Do we have anybody celebrating a birthday in this wonderful month of January? We have Kat, we have Lane. I can't see back. Is that James? James Thompson. And of course, today's birthday is Miss Gwen Wiggleton. Can we get a quick happy birthday from this crowd to all the birthday celebrants? Ready? Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Democrats. Happy birthday to you. Hey. And may we see you for many, many more birthdays. I want to keep celebrating. All right. So let's talk about what's been happening in our party. December has been a quiet month. For many of us, we were still recovering from the headache of the November election. But we did do some things. First of all, we do have new literature back at the table that I want to call to your attention. So back at the round tables near the entrance, we've got a handout about it's called the People's March. It used to be the Women's March. If you remember that from 2016, we now have the People's March of 2021. We are now 2025. And there's a whole article about it with some information. Is there anybody here who's planning to go to the People's March? We've got 1, we've got 2, 3, and maybe some others. There's a big march in Washington, D.C., 2 weeks from today. And then there are also local marches happening in Greenville and in Columbia. Inside your agenda is a little link, I think, to where you can find more information about it. I think you'll find it on the back page. It's peoplesmarch.com on Saturday, January 18th. So if you're interested in joining, please give that a look. And you can do it locally or you can do it nationally. We also have a guest column that appeared in the Index Journal, an article written by Betty Rose Horn that I thought was fantastic. So I printed off a bunch of copies and asked you to take one with you as you leave and read it. It was a very positive article that I think we needed after an election cycle. Although my trust in the Index Journal has been shaken recently. Did anybody see me on the front page of the Index Journal last week? They called me to ask for a statement about President Carter's passing, and I was labeled as the former chair of the Greenwood County Democratic Party. And I'm here to tell you, I am not dead yet. I am still here and alive and kicking. So the author decided to insert that in there for some reason to help accelerate my passing on. But I am not a former chair yet. 2 other pieces of literature. I met with Angela Jeter. You might recognize her. She ran for U.S. Senate in South Carolina, but she didn't win the primary. She lost to Crystal Matthews. But she also ran for state party chair as well. She's been here a couple of times to speak. She is the head of the South Carolina Democratic Party Veterans and Military Families Caucus. So they gather and meet quarterly. A lot of times it's remote. If you're interested in being part of this caucus, which discusses legislation, talks to legislators about proposed bills, there's a flyer back there with information on how to join. And then finally, the executive committee came up with a statement. We issued a statement about Greenwood Representative John McCravey. For those that didn't see it in the news or see it in our newsletter, John McCravey had a spat publicly with other Republicans in South Carolina. He resigned from the Judiciary Committee and the State House. Now, these committees are assigned. You don't get to pick and choose what committees you're on. You're told as part of your job where you're going to serve, and he served on the Judiciary Committee for years. This year, in a pretty unprecedented move, he issued a resignation to the chair of that committee, who's also a Republican, issuing some grievances and complaints that they were too liberal. And now this is a committee that's run by Freedom Caucus members, and McCravey thought that they were too liberal. And so he stepped aside, has not been reassigned anywhere else, and we issued a statement where we essentially praised him for resigning from that committee and encouraged him to resign from other committees he's on, because the less involvement he has in legislative development, the better. So we came out of the gate with that last year. If you want a copy of that statement, it's available in the back. We also have on the tables a write-up that Chair Ingram from Lawrence County wrote about why Trump won. Is that correct? And this is an educated man. You know, this is the guy that has a lot of things named after him in Lawrence, and he'll talk more about that during our Chairs Forum. But I want everybody to see that and take a copy with you home, and we can all learn from that. We had a very successful Christmas parade last month. Thank you, Cynthia, for helping spearhead that. Thank you, Tori, for providing the car. We also had John Blocker and his wife Janet provide a golf cart, and then I was there to provide good looks, I suppose. But the 5 of us marched in the Christmas parade as part of the Greenwood County Democratic Party with a banner and candy, and it was the first time we'd ever done that. So it has to start somewhere, and it was a lot of fun. It was a beautiful day. I would like to double that number to 10 participants next Christmas. So I thought that was great. Here's a couple of lovely pictures from that. Coming up in January, we do celebrate Martin Luther King Jr. Day. On Monday, January 20th, there will be an MLK March in Greenwood. It starts at 9:30 at the courthouse. So you can park at the courthouse or nearby the courthouse. They will march from the courthouse to here, right into the center. And it's about a mile. So you can park here and walk up to the courthouse, or you can park at that courthouse and walk here, or park somewhere in between. But they're going to walk a mile, and then followed by a program of some speakers and some other things that'll happen here. All are invited. We encourage you to attend. I've gone every year, and it's always been a wonderful community building experience. We're also having a social gathering the 4th Thursday of every month, and yes, the 4th Thursday this year is January 23rd. We actually have 5 Thursdays in the month of January. So Thursday, January 23rd, 6 p.m., Good Times Brewing over on Maxwell Avenue. We just get together, order some dinner, chat, no program, no agenda, no speeches. We just gather and have a Dem Good Time. All right, so please join us if you've not come out before. A good way to get to know each other. And then at our last executive committee meeting, we came up with the idea of being more visible in the community, going out to where the people are. This breakfast gathering is great. People have to come in from all over the county, though, and we've got people that live in Ware Shoals. We've got people that live in Hodges, 96. So we want to have local town halls. And it's not anything with an agenda, really. I'm thinking of it as kind of a casual meeting where the chair or some representative of the county party is there to maybe have some few words, talk about what's going on, Q&A from the audience, maybe some snacks, pizza, drinks, things like that. But we want to start going to these places and circle through them a couple of times a year. So if you have, and this is the ask that I have from you here, if you have a lead on places we could reserve and meet in Hodges, in 96, in Ware Shoals, that we can book a room. I'm not looking for anything big, could hold maybe a dozen people. I'm not envisioning 80 people showing up to a Ware Shoals town hall, but a dozen people or so, like a library or someplace we can have food. Let me know. And we would like to start booking some dates and start to advertise it and see if we can't meet some curious people. Because I tell you, this year is going to be a political disaster for the Trump administration and the Republicans that followed him, and we want to be there ready to bring people into the fold and start to build that base for the 2026 election. So please see me or any of the executive committee if you've got a lead on where we could meet and reserve some rooms in these 4 locations. The big event this year is Saturday, March 1st, 10 a.m. That will be our county convention. So it won't be your typical breakfast meeting. First of all, it's going to start at 10 a.m. And we'll have lunch. We'll have sandwiches. Instead of donuts and breakfast sandwiches, we'll have regular lunch sandwiches. I also learned a lesson that we need to have coffee even at the convention. I think I caught a lot of grief last time when we didn't have coffee, even though it was noon. Some of you require coffee. So we're going to have coffee as well. But this is where we elect our local county party leadership for the next 2 years. So in fact, up for election is the full executive committee, the chair, first vice chair, second vice chair, third vice chair, executive committee man, executive committee woman. They represent our county at the state level. They go to Columbia once a quarter and represent us at the state level. And then you have alternate committee man and committee woman in case the committee man, committee woman can't make it. And then we also have a state convention in May. The date has been set. I'll publicize that in our email newsletter, but they have picked a date for the Palmetto dinner and the convention the following Saturday. So we elect delegates, and it's not really an election. Basically, anybody who raises their hand to be a delegate, as long as you're in good standing with the party, you'll be assigned to go, and you get to go and vote at the state level. I have already announced, for those that didn't know, but I've announced it several months in a row now, I will not be seeking re-election as chair. I've done it for 5 years. I've loved every minute of it. This is my happy space right here on the stage. But for the health of the party, for growth into the future, we need some fresh blood, some fresh leadership, some new voices. So it will be open. We will be announcing how people can nominate themselves to run. If you're interested, we will have an online Google form that you can fill out. We will do the registration online. We'll announce all the candidates, allow some campaigning, and then we'll elect as a group on March 1st. But you need to be present to vote. There won't be any absentee voting for this role. All right, this is all in person. We'll cover all the details in our February breakfast meeting. We'll go over all the rules and all the processes. But start thinking about it. We want some new leaders into these positions, and maybe I haven't talked with any of these people who currently are in these roles. Maybe they want to run again. I don't know. So it's going to be open, and I hope it to be fun and spirited, and we do see some new faces come through. Community care program, we have a food drive coming up. Carl, is that correct? All right, we have a food drive. Every year we participate with the county and the city. They go head-to-head on a food drive to see which group can collect the most canned goods for the food pantry, for the food kitchen of Greenwood. And we are here to support them in those efforts. They haven't announced it yet. They will in mid-January, but come our February breakfast meeting, we'll be right there to help collect. So keep that in mind. Bring some food with you. I think February 1st is our next breakfast meeting, and Carl will be there to collect. Look online, look for our email newsletter for more information. Do we have any other community events coming up that you want to announce, Carl? Carl Schwarzman, everybody, is our community care coordinator. He's been doing a bang-up job.
All right. Yeah. So as Bill mentioned, in February we'll be collecting canned food for the city and the county food drive. And even though you don't live here in Greenwood, feel free to bring food and donate for that good cause. And in March and April, we'll probably start collecting for our annual egg hunt that we have. We usually have it the Saturday right after Easter, which would be April the 27th over at Magnolia Park. So any of the big bags of candy or stickers or little small toys that we could put in the eggs and stuff. And are you going to talk about the volunteer form on the table? Yeah, any volunteers that want to help out with the egg hunt, like set up, clean up, just make sure you mark that on the form. So that'd be great. And if you have any ideas for how we can publicize that egg hunt, or like food trucks or different things to get people out and about, let me know and we'll start planning that early. All right, thank y'all.
That Easter egg hunt was great. I love it every year. Speaking of volunteerism, this year I would like to renew our call for volunteers. At your table, you'll see a half sheet of paper cut that's a volunteer form, and many of you have filled these out already in the past. We're going to do things a little fresh this year, so if you can volunteer, and I would hope every person here has a role to play outside of coming to a meeting, but if you can fill that form out and just mark off what you're interested in. This isn't committing you to anything, but just says, says, reach out to me if you have a need for a protest. Reach out to me if you have a need for cooking. Reach out to me if you have a need for digital and social media. Mark off whatever you're interested in. Cynthia, would you stand up, please? Cynthia is going to step in as our volunteer coordinator. So if you would turn in those slips of paper to Cynthia. As you leave, I would like her to walk out with a full stack that she can enter in and then have on hand as we come up with events and ideas, and we will reach out to you this year. We're not in an election cycle, but we are still going to try to be as active as possible and keep the spirit of the Democratic Party alive. All right, so we agreed everybody has a role to play. Anybody feel like they don't have a role to play? All right, everybody can do something, even if it's just once a year. That's how we do things. Democrats need volunteers. Volunteers are our lifeblood. And you know what? It's been a while, but we have not announced a volunteer of the month pretty much since the campaigning started in earnest last summer. It's a tradition that we've had. We like to acknowledge one person who's really stepped up above and beyond these past few months as our volunteer of the month. And this month, I couldn't think of anyone better. This person has been actively engaged in campaigns, actively engaged with the party, organized things when nobody else would organize, was pivotal in our Carnell Drummond Mays banquet, getting things together. Ladies and gentlemen, can I get a big round of applause for Cynthia Halpin Brown? Come on up, Cynthia. I'd like to give Cynthia this award of recognition. It says this award is presented to Cynthia Halpin Brown in appreciation of your volunteerism and generosity in support of the efforts of the Greenwood County Democratic Party, given this day, 4th of January, 2025, signed by myself and First Vice Chair Jamil Brooks. So thank you, Cynthia. And as a small token of our appreciation for your desk, we've got a Ruth Bader Ginsburg portrait and a quote that says, fight for the things you care about, but do it in a way that will lead others to join you. So we give this to you. You didn't film that, did you? Nobody saw it. This is my favorite part of every meeting.